Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial IO. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm welcoming back Daniel Bergholz, an Elixir developer who's sharing his approach to integrating AI tools and optimizing his workflow to become a more effective developer. Welcome back, Daniel. It's always good to have you on. And I'm excited about this one because I've been trying to have more efficient ways to integrate AI with my daily development, because I definitely don't take full advantage. I'm the guy that likes the autocomplete, but I'm still writing most of my code. And I know there's just a lot of better workflows just to produce faster and still create high quality projects. So excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me the second time. It's always a pleasure to be here. I absolutely adore your content, and it's always an honor to participate in one of those videos. And hopefully today I'm going to be able to help some people use AI in their workflow. I know the hot topic for AI is always Python or JavaScript, but you can use for Elixir. And I have been using for the past 2 months, I think. And it has been life-changing, to be honest.
That's awesome. I've been playing around. Cursor has been the most used IDE that I've been using. And I know we're going to jump into Windsurf. And then one of my coworkers, he's been using the extension Klein with Claude, with his Claude API key. And so the last couple days I've been playing around with that and creative solutions to kind of keep the LLM on track, I guess, with I think that's the hardest part, right? When you're in a large code base, how do you tell it to dude, don't do it this way? It keeps I like to use it for writing tests, and it will continually try to create new mock emitters for me when I already have existing tools. But I think when you figure out your rules that you kind of feed it so it doesn't keep making the same mistakes over and over, that's what I kind of have to dial in. So I'm excited to hear your approach. And you just recently wrote a pretty good blog article it's already in the show notes. I linked it there, but nice. It's kind of your workflow as of recently, at least.
Exactly. And I was about to ask you, what is your current usage for AI? I don't know if you can do a poll on YouTube to also ask the viewers, how are they using AI? I don't know if it's possible, or we can just ask
let's try.
Send on the chat.
Yeah, people can send it in the chat. I've never I don't know if I can do a poll. Now I want to know.
Yeah, but the question that I have is, what is your current AI usage? And more specifically, do you use AI mostly as a chat, using Claude or ChatGPT, the desktop app, the website, or are you generating code with AI? Because we live in a bubble on Twitter. I have the feeling that everyone is generating code with AI, but that's just not true. We are on a tiny bubble of people that are highly, at least on my Twitter bubble, they are extremely optimistic about AI. So it feels like everyone is generating code with AI. But whenever I talk to someone, a friend or another developer, they're like, oh yeah, I use AI. I use ChatGPT to ask questions. And I'm like, that's not really what I meant. I meant using more than just the chat. But I wanted to know if the people watching this are using just the chat, or if they are indeed using, for example, Cursor or Windsurf or even Copilot inside of VS Code.
I like for me, I can dive into what I've been doing. I need to make it way better. So I like to use like the chat version to help me like plan things out, right? Maybe like an overall like create like a overall like project document, you know, with all your goals and things. Like I'll obviously like feed it my goals and then have Claude like refine it. And then kind of like a back and forth to make sure whether it's a feature or a whole project, I like to like make sure things are planned out. And that's good for me because I'm one of those guys that it's really easy for me. Like when I want to fix a bug or a feature, I jump into writing code right away instead of planning it out. And I get in this weird, like I end up coming to the right solution, but I waste a lot more time writing unnecessary code and refactoring till I finally dial in like the best solution. So I think it forces me to think about my problem more before writing actual code. And then as far as like when I use Cursor, I'll usually write functions, sometimes ask it to like refactor it or use pattern matching. Like if I write something kind of sloppy, but it works, I'll use it as like a refactoring tool. And then the biggest thing that I have found is when I write like a new function or module, I have it write tests for me. And then I'll read through for the most part, I want to say like 90% of the time, the tests are pretty good. Sometimes I have to like nudge it and be like, we also have to test this case. Like this is kind of useless. But for the most part, it gives me pretty good test coverage back. I will say if you're not good at reading code or having like code smell, like that skill, I think AI could be kind of detrimental though, because you could be
Yeah.
just producing a lot of bad code.
Yeah. So your daily usage now is mostly for the chat feature is mostly to like refine what needs to be built, like a product requirements document of some sorts that people call PRD. And then once you have a rough idea of what needs to be done, then you mostly write the code and then use AI to generate tests. That's like your primary use case today.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to explain my workflow now, and I want to see your opinion. So I actually took some notes because I don't want to forget anything. I have mostly two workflows. The first one I use on my free time because on my free time I'm working on some SaaS ideas. And then to work on a SaaS, well, you need to wear the developer hat, the founder hat, the product manager hat, the designer hat. You need to do anything, everything. And then on my job, that's different. On my job, I am an individual contributor. I am mostly a developer. So I need to focus primarily on writing code. So which one do you want to hear first? Like the SaaS workflow or the technical workflow?
Um, Technical workflow.
Okay. So previously I used to use just the chat feature from mostly not even inside the code base. I would just open ChatGPT and then ask some questions. Whenever I had doubts on how to structure a component on the front end, I would say, hey, I'm working on a drop-down component. Which props do you think are good to pass for this component? So mostly some light questions. The biggest amount of code that I would generate would be for those boilerplate things, that utils folder, like formatting dates. I always hated formatting dates in JavaScript. So I would just open ChatGPT and say, please format the date. I have a string, format this date, and then output something with the year at the end or something. So that was my use case. Then out of nowhere, it seems that my entire Twitter feed was flooded with people saying, hey, use Cursor, use Windsurf. And I was like, what do you mean? Like the chat tab? And they said no. Previously, this was a new feature, but now it's not. It's very common. But on Cursor, you had the agent mode where you give access to your entire code base for the AI, and then AI would edit your code. A couple of months ago, that was pretty new, and people said that this was revolutionary. So I made a huge mistake on this transition because I thought, well, under the hood, Cursor is using Claude, right? Claude, back then it was Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I have free access to GitHub Copilot Pro. I think it was because of a tiny open source contribution that I made a couple of years ago. I don't know, but I have free access to the Pro version. And then, as everybody else, I was using VS Code. I opened VS Code, the Copilot tab, and I saw that I was using Claude as well. And I thought, well, if it's the same model, I mean, it's the same product. Am I right? If Cursor and Copilot are using the same model, it's impossible to have better results on one rather than the other. So I kept using Copilot, and the results were horrible. They were extremely inconsistent. Copilot would edit files that I didn't ask it to edit. It would like completely remove functions, like literally break my code. It would output a new component, but then erase a bunch of other components. So I was like, wow, man, this AI thing is trash. So I gave up on it. And then people kept insisting, hey, man, you need to try Cursor. And I said, bro, it's the same model. How am I going to get a better result on Cursor? And they said, just try it. Okay, just try it. And then I learned that actually there's much more things happening under the hood. There's like the code base indexing. Cursor detects if there are lint errors on your file. So if, for example, it erases like an import, then it would detect that there is an import missing, or I don't know, type errors from TypeScript. It detects that, and then it starts a loop of, okay, generate the code and then start looping to fix all the issues until they're all gone, and then it finishes the work. While Copilot would just throw up a bunch of code, and that's it. If it works, doesn't matter. Are there lint errors? Doesn't matter. I gave it the code, that's it. So
Yeah.
I got horrible results. I got frustrated. I thought those people were lying to me about AI. But once I started using Cursor, that was the changing moment for me, where I saw with my own eyes, hold up, this is good. Like, it generated some code that from my standards, they're good. There were some lint errors, then it cleaned up the lint errors, the import errors, the type errors, and the code was usable. So that was a shock. I was like, oh, okay, so this is the real deal. Cursor is the real deal. And then I forced myself to use Cursor for 1 month. Then people started talking about Windsurf, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a chance. I spent another month using Windsurf. And I'm going to be honest, the differences are very minor, like very minor. They do pretty much the same thing. And I'm going to talk about Windsurf on this podcast, but just rest assured that everything that I'm going to say here also works for Cursor. It's not Windsurf specific, okay? But I gave Windsurf a chance. I thought the UI was a bit more polished. The context uh, search on Windsurf I thought was better. And the Cursor is a bit unstable. Like, I would get some random error messages and then Cursor would crash. I got annoyed. I started using Windsurf and I never looked back. And then I started generating code, not only the chat tab, but generating code. So I have a couple of practical tips on what to do when the code generation doesn't work in your favor. But I wanted to say right now that the quality of the code generation depends a lot on the language and the framework that you're using. So I used it for React, TypeScript, which is the default front-end framework these days, and it works like a charm. It works extremely well. Claude, which is the model that I use inside Windsurf, needs very little hand-holding in order to get things right. The results are pretty impressive. Even if you are a noob or a junior, if you have no idea what you're doing, you have a bigger margin when working with React because the code, in my opinion, looks good 99% of the times. On Elixir, the other hand, or any other niche language, I would say that the results are mid to good. They're getting there, but they're mostly mid to good in that layer of like between a 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 10. And then React is 10 out of 10. So it needs a little bit of hand holding. You need to guide him a little bit. But I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of obvious because the amount of publicly available Elixir code on the internet is not a lot if you compare to Python or TypeScript. So in my mind, it makes sense for the results, the AI results on Elixir to be a little worse. And that applies to any niche language. If you want to write, I don't know, Scala, Zig, whatever niche language, I guarantee you that the results are going to be mixed. So I have some pro tips on how to handhold Claude a little bit and then guide him through the possible mistakes that he does. The first thing that I would like to say is that there are two very nice features on Windsurf, also on Cursor, of course. They are the memories feature and the rules feature. So let's say that you're trying Windsurf for the first time. You asked it to generate some code, and then it got something wrong. Okay, you have two options. Option number one is on the chat, on the same chat open, you're going to say, hey, you got this wrong. And then under the hood, Claude is going to save a memory of this conversation and hopefully not going to make this mistake again. You can even be explicit about it. You can say, hey, you made a mistake here. Please create a memory for this. And then under the hood, it creates a memory. But memories, I don't know. I feel like they are a bit ephemeral and they're a bit hard to share with their teammates. Ideally, I would like to have one file with all the best practices, have that with all my teammates, and then everyone just have the same rules. And that's where rules come into the game. Both of the IDEs, they have a file that you can add to the root of your project. On Windsurf, it's called Windsurf rules. On Cursor is .cursor rules. They have a more complex like folder structure that you can add as well as a rules folder, but on Windsurf, it's one file. And then on this file, you're going to give a high-level overview of how you would like your AI to function or which best practices you want Claude to follow. So I like using the rules file to, whenever Claude messes up something, I open my rules file and then I add the rule there. So let me give you an example. On my side projects, I use Elixir, Phoenix, React, and Inertia. And the results of AI are pretty good, but something that Claude often gets wrong is passing the data between Phoenix and the React front end via Inertia, because you have your traditional controller on Phoenix, and then you say assign and render, right? On Inertia, you say assign props and render Inertia. That's the main difference. And then it would constantly use assign and render, assign and render. And then I was like, oh man. So I went back to my Windsurf rules file. I added inertia section there. And by the way, you can add any formatting there. It's like a random TXT file. I try to follow like the markdown formatting of the text, but it's not mandatory. It's just a text file. You can write it however you want. So I just have a section.
It's just easier for us to read if it's marked down, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then the IDE, they have the color syntax, right? So if you have a title, it's a different color. So it's easier for the eyes. So I try using the markdown formatting. And then I just created a section there saying inertia or inertia best practices, I think. And then there's a bullet point saying, please, inside the controller, use assign prop to pass the props from Phoenix to React, and use render inertia to render a React component rather than a Higgs file. And then after that, never got this wrong again. Never. So that's pretty much the two biggest rules that I try to follow whenever it makes mistakes. So I just correct the mistake on a rules file, and then that's it. Another thing that I like to do is using the web. So, of course, both Cursor and Windsurf, they have this feature, but on Windsurf, you can write @web, paste a link, and then it's going to search the web. So, for example, Phoenix and Elixir is already a very niche language. Now, couple that with Inertia. How many production apps today we have with Phoenix and Inertia, and that are open source, so the LLMs can index those code bases? I think not a lot, maybe one or two in the entire world. I don't know. Um, so what I try to do is whenever I want to do something super specific for Inertia, I just grab the README file from the Inertia, the Phoenix adapter for Inertia, and then on the chat I paste @web, the README link, and I say, please implement this and use this link as a reference. And then because it has access to the official documentation, then that's it. And I know some people on Twitter that said, hey, generating code for live view is horrible. And the first thing that I always ask is, did you paste the live view docs? Because if you didn't, then I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
think it
will
makes sense
say
to get bad results.
night and day difference if you include documentation.
Yeah. And there's also documentation that is optimized for LLMs. So we're entering this new era where like we need pages to be accessible to search engine bots. So we have SEO. Now we have like the LLM SEO
Yeah,
equivalent
that's funny.
where you need to optimize for search engines, but also for AIs. And in order to do that, some people are creating a llms.txt file that they put at the root of their website, where instead of displaying your default HTML with a bunch of tags that is polluting the content, you just paste the text, like human readable markdown format. So bonus points if you're pasting a documentation inside Windsurf as the llms.txt. I know Supabase, they have this file. Next.js, they have it as well. So if you know that the documentation you're using has that llms.txt, then copy that and paste it inside Windsurf. The results are going to be better and faster because the AI doesn't have to traverse a bunch of div.
So are you
It just,
seeing that with a lot of documentation now? I guess I haven't really looked for it, so that's cool.
yeah, you can try. Just grab any popular documentation and then at the end just paste llms.txt. It's relatively new. I would say that not a lot of documentations have it. There are some services that you can use to generate it for you. So, for example, I have that project live, Tech School, where you can find free YouTube courses. And I used a tool called Firecrawl. They have a CLI tool that you install and you run like npx, generate llm txt, paste your URL, and then yeah, you can go to techschool.dev/llms.txt. And I mean, sorry, not TechSchool, my main website. I made a small confusion there. So if you go to bergdaniel.com.br/llms.txt, then you can find the LLMs accessible version of my website.
That's
So
awesome.
that's good to know. If you know that your docs has that llms.txt, then copy that. It's going to be faster to index. It's going to go straight to the information without having to filter all the HTML tags. That's better. And then another thing that I would say that is optional on my setup, but many people do it, is use MCPs. I think, if I'm not mistaken, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And you don't need to know how it works under the hood. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Oh no, go.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you don't need to know like the implementation details. All you need to know is that it is a way to connect your AI agent to external resources, any external resource. That's it. That's all you need to know about MCPs. And usually you configure it on a JSON file. So you have your MCPs for Cursor, that's a JSON file. You have your MCPs for the Claude desktop app. It's a JSON file. That's it. So super easy. There are some websites out there that you can use to find those MCPs. There are many, I would say that the most popular ones I think are Postgres. So yeah, Windsurf can see all your data on your local database. There's one for GitHub. So especially if you're working on an open source project, instead of copying the text from an issue, pasting on Windsurf and saying, okay, please fix this bug, you can simply say, traverse my issues from TechSchool and then see which one should be a priority or fix that. And then because you're using the GitHub MCP, then Windsurf has access to your open source repo. It's going to read the issue for you. No need for you to copy and paste from here, from there, from there. No, you just paste the issue number, and then it's going to call the GitHub API under the hood. I don't use a lot of them. There's also one for Slack. So you can say, hey, go to the bugs Slack channel and then fix the first one. You could do that. You could. But the one that I use the most is Postgres.
Who
Now,
uses Slack to track their bugs? Come on, man. I'm just...
I'm not going to say anything. I might know somebody. I'm not going to mention names. So, but I would say the most useful one is Postgres by far. And that's usually because like I'm coding so fast nowadays, and then I'm watching the screen, and then there's like a missing part on the UI. And I'm like, hold up. This user has a bunch of comments. Why are there no comments here? And then I literally just open Windsurf and I say, why can't I see any comments from this user? And then it's going to query for the information for that user, try to pull in the comments, and then that is going to find a bug for you, saying something like, oh, you're using the wrong user ID for the comments. That's why. And I can see that Daniel, for example, has 0 comments. So you're probably messing up the integration somehow.
Can you restrict it
awesome.
to read only? Because that would make me nervous. Okay.
By default, I don't think that this MCP has write access. Okay. I don't think it has. By default, it's just read access. Maybe if it has write access, you can pass an argument to the command. But by default, it's just read only. Okay. Also for my GitHub, because you could use Windsurf to create a PR for you, but I don't like that idea.
Dude, that stuff is wild to me. So I will say one thing I really liked about your blog post was you're constantly using like Credo and mixed format. And
exactly.
Like you're constantly checking for errors as you go because, and guys, if you're using this stuff to write code and change files, please use Git.
please.
Because it can really refactor and F up a lot of your project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the bad parts later. But once AI starts hallucinating, it goes on a rampage of mass destruction of your files. And you need to stop immediately and then revert anything that you previously accepted.
Yeah. Now, one thing that annoys me with like AI tooling, I feel like you end up wasting a lot of your day sitting around waiting for responses versus just getting work done. How do you combat that, or how do you feel about that?
That's a very good point. So I have seen many approaches to this problem. The first one is some people, they are very happy with AI taking over the code generation part of their job. And then they're asking for features like, hey, can you ring a bell or like make a sound when Cursor finishes writing the code so I can go back to it instead of alt-tabbing all over the place. So some people, they completely switch tabs and do other things, go answer emails, like literally, or go make a coffee. But I like...
But my coffee is automatic now too. I just push a button.
Okay. So what could you do while Cursor is working? Can you work out? Can you do some squats, some bench presses? I don't know. Go ride your bike. Take a healthier lifestyle.
That is an approach. I've
Yeah,
I've
and
I've been doing on so I go to the gym every day. I go to CrossFit, but I've started doing since the weather's getting warmer now. We're coming out of winter. We enter like 3 and 4 winters. Like you keep thinking it's spring and then it snows again. But in between, it's been getting really nice. So I run a mile every day and I've been doing 100 push-ups on top of my workout. And I can pump out my 100 push-ups when I wait for
you
responses.
can do some push-ups while we wait. There you go. So you generate the code and get jacked at the same time.
Perfect.
That's heaven for me. But I will say that I like reviewing all the code. And once you start using these tools, you can see like the thinking behind each feature. So it shows something like, hey, Daniel wants to create a drop-down component. Let me see if there are other drop-down components on this project. So it looks for files. Oh, I found this one. Let me try to use it. Oh, it's missing a prop. Let me add that prop here. And then I closely monitor what the AI is doing. Because one of the bad things that AI can do is it can hallucinate. So it starts going on a tangent. And once you realize the AI completely overwrote your entire code, and then you're building a completely different platform. And I like to closely monitor. And then also while it's generating the code, I am looking each line that it generates. Because if I see that it's going on a weird tangent, there's a big red button that you can press to stop. And you don't need to wait for the AI to finish. So you can say, hey, you messed up big time. No, pause immediately. That's my tip. Just pause. If you see it editing a file in a wrong way or creating a component that you didn't want to, pause. Just kill that chat. And remember that the AI has memories. If you don't start another chat, then AI has context over what you asked before. So you can queue the process and say, hey, I don't need a new component. Please use that one. So then Claude is going to say, oh, sorry, you're right. That's the phrase that I hear the most. Oh, absolutely, you are correct. I'm going to do it your way. So it
Or
says,
like,
oh,
you are
absolutely correct.
correct. That function doesn't exist. We should use one that does.
Yeah. And funny enough, like there were some times where Claude would generate a code. I was like, that's completely useless. Remove it, please. And then 30 minutes later of debugging, I'm like, man, I kind of need that function. So Claude was right. He said I was absolutely correct, and I wasn't. So I just go to the AI. Sorry, Lord, you are correct. Our overlord, you're correct. I was mistaken. Move forward. But yeah, I like to closely monitor. If AI messes up something, I kill the process and I say, please don't do that. And then it keeps going on the correct direction. Because this way, another thing that I'm gonna say is that AI is expensive. Like you can see the windsurf price, it's $15 a month, right? You can see that and think, well, that's pretty reasonable to automate my entire job. That's reasonable, I think. But last month, I spent $65 because I was constantly purchasing more and more and more credits. So instead of letting AI process for like 5 minutes, if on minute number 2, I can detect a hallucination, I'm like, no, 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 stop. Stop wasting my money. Stop wasting my time. Just do that instead.
Can you connect Claude's API to Windsurf and use the
Like the API keys.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think they have this feature today. I
So
know Cursor has
you
it,
have to
maybe.
pay through Windsurf for everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's another thing that I don't like. Like I pay for the premium version of Claude, the desktop app, but
Hmm.
also for Windsurf. So I'm kind of paying for Claude twice. But I like the separation. I can get into the details of how I use Claude for the SaaS part, but I like this separation because I think that the AI inside Windsurf and Cursor, I think they have some custom instructions inside. where they are asked to explicitly generate code. And there are times that I don't want to generate code. I'm like, how would you do this, Claude? And then it
Hmm.
starts generating a bunch of controllers, and I'm like, no, 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 no code generation. Please just explain to me, how would you do that? I want to have a rough idea of which direction I want to go. And then Claude is like, oh, yeah, sure, just create this module. And I'm like, no, don't generate code. I need ideas, I need brainstorming. And then on the Claude desktop app, it's more, oh, you don't want the code? Okay, then just do this, this, and that. It's more brainstormy, I guess. And I like having a partner of ideas.
It's nice, like, I think, especially in the world of remote work, you can kind of use Claude or like any AI, I guess, as like kind of like a rubber duck too. Like, because you're not bouncing off
Mhm.
ideas next to the dev next to you anymore, but you can get pretty good ideas just chatting in the chat prompt.
Yeah, by the way, there's a button for it. You can click on Windsurf, it's like edit mode, I think, and chat mode. By default, it's on edit because nowadays everyone is generating code. But you can click on chat, and then it's, if it generates code, it's like on the chat tab, but not on your code. Like it doesn't overwrite any files. It just shows the code on the chat. And I like this a lot because, for example, on my job, I'm working on a huge application. It's very, very big. And I don't want to bother the other engineers. Like, hey, do you know how that works? Yeah, sometimes I do that. I just send a Slack message, but sometimes I simply open Windsurf and I'm like, please explain to me this module. Can you explain to me how the invoices work? And it gives me a pretty nice breakdown of how the code works, what are the main modules behind it, what are the front end components responsible for it. It's like a very nice teacher in a way.
Hmm.
So if you are a junior, for example, I also have some tips for junior on how to leverage these tools. But if I were you, I would use just the chat tab and just ask questions because you need to practice the ability of crafting code. But that doesn't mean that you can't ask, like, oh, explain to me this part of the code. That is so useful. There's always some very hidden part of the code that just the CTO knows about and nobody else has ever messed around with it. And you're like, man, there are like 20 modules here. I have no clue. Like you could manually go inside each file and then track how everything's working, but sometimes that could take an hour, 2 hours. You could have a head start by just saying, please explain to me the invoices part of the app. And
Hmm.
then you're going to have a complete breakdown of how that works. And usually it shows the source of the things. So if you see the results of the AI and you're like, I'm not sure that's correct, usually it says, hey, that file, that module is responsible for this, that module is responsible for that. So you can click and see for yourself. So yeah, if you don't want to edit code or generate code with AI, you're like more you like hand typing code, okay, fine.
Hmm.
But use the chat tab, ask questions there, ask for suggestions before implementing something. Imagine that you have a senior buddy right next to you that you can just knock on him and say, hey, what do you think about this? It's amazing. I love brainstorming ideas
I
because
do I do love that idea because so whenever I'm like in macros or anything, dude, they break my mind, especially when someone else has written them. They're hard enough for
Mhm.
me to go back and read even if I wrote them, but I have used Claude to explain how like certain modules work with like DSLs and things like that.
Yeah,
And
that is very useful and
yeah.
time saving.
Hmm. Yeah, you go, please explain this to me like I'm five.
Yeah, add the like I'm five at the end, and then you're gonna get
Yeah.
the best responses.
Exactly. Like you want to teach yourself how to program, keep asking Claude to explain something to you like you're five and you're going to be, well, you might get a lot of like toy box analogies, but it'll be good.
Yeah, but yeah, I honestly think that the using the AI as just a senior buddy that you can annoy all the time,
Hmm.
24/7, every day, it's so underrated. because yeah, like sometimes we want to fix a nasty problem, we have no clue on how to do that. So for example, I'm using inertia for my side project, and for a tiny feature I was like, man, I kind of miss live view. I would love to have like a pub sub here where I would immediately push a notification to the front end as soon as that notification happened. And inertia has a hook called the use poll, but it's polling, right? I'm not pushing events to the front end. I'm constantly asking to the backend, hey, something new, something new, something new, every, I don't know, 4 seconds. That's not optimal. And I was like, do I have something like this on inertia? So I asked Claude, and then it gave me a complete breakdown of, hey, it doesn't seem like inertia has what you're asking for, but you can do a mixture of your inertia app and Phoenix channels. So then it showed me a big JavaScript file where I first create my inertia app, and then down below I establish a WebSocket connection and start using Phoenix channels. And then it was like, well, because we're not using React context, you can use vanilla JavaScript events. And I was like, man, this is so genius. And sure, I could have reached the same conclusion in a couple of hours, maybe days, but having a starting point is so
Yeah.
helpful.
Or building it wrong the first time and then rebuilding it. Like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like I feel like when I use it to like rubber duck or plan features, it forces me to slow down and actually plan my next step versus just jumping in and then having to redo all the work. Like it accelerates learning.
yeah, exactly. And because you have this buddy that you can ask questions, sometimes you're like, once you reach this ultra mega senior level, like you sometimes you get into this mode of, I'm just gonna do it. I've done
I
this a
think
million times. I'm
I
just gonna
might
do it.
be I might be like a noob junior, you know.
Now you're the ultra mega blaster senior level. So maybe you get into this mode of like just full coding, straight up coding. But yet there's always like one or two things that are missing that we're not taking into consideration. And by
Well, what's
talking
hard
to AI, you can find those spots.
Yeah. One thing that I find hard is if you're starting to kind of let AI more into your writing code for you. One thing I feel like I'm less of a developer and it's all up here, right?
Mhm.
Because all I feel like I'm doing is PR reviews
Yeah.
and
And
like yelling at someone like, no, you can't do it this way.
mhm.
And I feel like you have like less time in the saddle on your keyboard, but I also feel like that might just be the evolution of things, and we
Yeah,
might have to accept that.
that's true. I think some people they get a bit sad by the fact that, oh man, that means if you're prompting to generate the code, do I even touch the code at all? And on my case, I do, but it's mostly for that final touch, that final polish. Or I don't know, maybe I want to switch the color of a button, then yeah, sure, I'll do it by hand. I'm not gonna ask AI and spend my hard-earned money for Claude to change the color. I can do that by hand, but the bulk of my job is generated by Claude. And some people don't like that feeling of, okay, so I don't write code anymore because yeah, it's more fun to write the code than it is to review the code. So I would say that in my case, I am a little bit on a privileged situation because the number one reason why I decided to learn to code wasn't because I wanted to become this ultra nerdy developer that is like micro optimizing each bit on the application. Like, I don't like that. I like building products, I like building things. I like seeing the screen with the courses and the user reviews, and wow, like it blows my mind that I just need a computer and internet access to do that. It's
Yeah.
pure magical to do that. So I fit more on this builder mentality. I like
Yeah.
building things. So for me, I think it's amazing. I build things way faster, And if I need to throw some code on the trash, that doesn't bother me, because instead of spending the entire day creating that feature, I spent 15 minutes. So
See,
wasting.
I like that angle a lot better because like I too I would consider myself a builder over, some crazy smart genius that's going to create new technologies and frameworks and make my life as a developer easier. I'm never going to be that guy, but I'm really good at
Mhm.
getting things built and working and shipping products. So I think I just had to change my angle. Like this is allowing me to build a product with just as much quality and like test coverage as you would manually, but in a much faster time.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have to admit that if you are this kind of developer that is more hands-on, that enjoys the process of writing code, that's not gonna stick with you. Like you're not gonna enjoy that. I think that's the future, but I'm not gonna come here and lie and say, "Oh, it's all good. You're gonna love it." You're not. Like if you like creating code by hand, you're not gonna enjoy this. You're chatting to a box inside Windsurf instead of doing engineering. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
it is different, and I'm not gonna come here and say, "Oh, it's all sunshines and rainbows. You should try it." No, like I still think you should try it because that's the future. But I'm not gonna lie and say that you're gonna love it. If you like generating the code, I mean, creating the code by hand, it's a different situation that we're living right now, and I don't think you're gonna enjoy this new era. But I think it's hard to go back. Like
Yeah.
imagine every CEO nowadays hearing that, oh, hold up, my developers could be 2x more productive, 3x more productive. Then I think that most of the business owners, they're gonna probably pay for like the team's license of Cursor and Windsurf, and then expect of you to 3x your productivity.
But also, that kind of sucks too. Like, I hate feeling like,
Yes.
I mean, I think this is something we have to accept, right? We're an asset
Hmm.
to a company.
Yeah.
So we're just a code or a feature factory essentially,
Hmm.
and it puts a weird stress on you when you're just like expected to perform and just like keep knocking things out, like like a
Hmm.
good little automated robot. And I think it's a hard pill to swallow. Um, that's funny. So
So
I
yeah,
just
it
read
is a bit
Nero's in the
pessimistic.
comments, and he just said harsh pill to swallow, and I think it just entered my brain, and so I said it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting. I think it's really good for bootstrap startups, right? You almost
Hmm.
only
Yeah,
need like two people to build a really good product. You need someone that can
yeah.
build it and understands the technical angle, and then you need someone that can sell it.
Hmm.
And so you can have these like two-man startups that are building amazing products with thousands of users.
Yeah. So yeah, complementing to your vision, I think that there are two roads that we're probably gonna follow after these new AI generating tools. Either we're gonna keep working as full-time coders, individual contributors, but now it is expected of you to ship 3x more. That future, I don't like. You're gonna be more and more robot, or actually, you're gonna be an AI manager. You're
Yeah.
gonna be the tech lead of a team of AIs. I don't like that idea at all. But to be honest, I don't think that is going to happen. I think we're going to start having more hybrid professionals. In the same way that you don't need to hire a designer. The entire design for the version 2 of Tech School that I'm working on, spoiler alert, I did not create. Claude created it. I don't have a Figma file for the design. So you could come here and say designers are dead. I don't think they are. I think we're just going to have a hybrid approach where it is you're going to do more things rather than just your own little island of, oh, I'm a designer, I do Figma, I just do Fig. No, you can be a design engineer, You can code and then generate designs. You're going to do more things. I think the more likely scenario is that we're going to slowly transition towards a role of product engineer, where instead of being just a code monkey, now you're going to talk to the founders, to the CEO, like directly, instead of
Mhm.
having this 10 layers of middle management and then 10 product manager. No, like if you can finish your coding job for the day in 2 hours instead of 8, well, you now have more time to talk to customers, get feedback from them, talk to the founders directly, see what they want for the product itself. I think we're going to move more towards this type of role. And that I'm excited. But that's because I have this builder mentality, and I think you do too,
You know what I heard
where,
though when you said that? If you can complete your programming tasks in 2 hours instead of eight, I think now you're just going to be expected to 4x your output.
yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. It's like
I,
expected
I
of you
will.
to ship a crap ton of features.
Yeah, I will say I think it opens the road. I think you'll see a lot more entrepreneurs doing their own thing because
Yeah.
it it makes it easy to like take that perspective, right? If you can get 8 hours of like programming work done in two, you now have 6 hours to sell your own product. So if you're building your own
Exactly.
stuff, that's yeah, I think that you'll see, and I am excited for that as well because I think that is a really cool approach. One thing that I think I see as being like detrimental though with using AI, if you're learning how to program, using it too much versus like,
Yeah.
because I think like there's something to be said about like the headaches and the pain points that you run into when you start to code that you're now going to avoid because you can just ask Claude. And then
Hmm.
are you truly learning or are you just regurgitating and fixing your problem and moving on? If you're truly trying to learn from it, I think that's good. But if you're just trying to be a fast new developer, you're not going to learn the same like hard lessons as someone that's programmed for 10 years.
Yeah. I think I have a good analogy for this, that in the same way that we all have calculators now, that's kind of obvious. But when you're a kid, you're not allowed to use the calculator. You need to do all the math by hand. You need to do that. You need to do the big multiplications and sum and subtraction by hand. And then once you are like a teenager, then it is expected of you to use a calculator because you're going to move on to more complex problems, and those easy math problems that you used to do by hand, now you use a calculator. I think in some ways for learning, it's the same thing. If you want to learn, then use the chat. Pretend that you have a senior by your side. Ask questions, but don't copy paste the errors and say fix it. Don't generate code. Don't. Just
Yeah, you need to be able to
code.
read
You
like
need to be able
console
to read.
outputs and things and understand errors. Chris just mentioned this has been a funny thing that's been trending on X a lot, but he goes the vibe coders launching SaaS products and immediately getting crippled by security holes. So
Yeah.
like this is the problem too with just like unleashing like some automated thing that like it builds you a product, you get it working, but you have no idea how it's operating. Like, did you set up Nginx? Like, what are you using to actually like how is Coors set up? Is it just asterisks? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Like, you're avoiding a lot. Like, there's so many security flaws because you have to remember a lot of these LLMs are scraping. They scraped Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
And how many times were you on Stack Overflow where you're like, how do I fix this Coors error? And they're like, just put an asterisk in your config. Like, that's not how you fix a Coors error, guys.
Yeah. And I think like if you want to build an MVP for testing purposes, sure, go
Yeah.
vibe code. That's in my mind, that's the best scenario for vibe coding. You're not
I
storing any
honestly,
sensitive information.
I
You just
hate
want something.
this term vibe code. It's just it's such a cringy thing that is like people that are that it actually exists. There were people are like, yeah, I'm a vibe coder. I just want to be like,
Yeah, it's
you're an
a bit
idiot.
cringe. And we're like spending 5 years of our lives doing engineering school, then another 15 working as software engineers, and to hear someone say, I'm a vibe coder. And I'm like,
Just trust the process, bro.
it's all about the
uh,
vibes.
yeah.
But yeah, like if you want to have something, what's the correct word? Like trashable, like that you can throw away. I don't know the best word for this in English, but
Like kind of
if
like
you
an
want to,
R&D product, like you want to just
yeah,
research and development and like iterate quickly, right? You
yeah,
want to find like
exactly.
product placement, but you can do it a lot quicker. So you might start over at the end of it. Like, yeah, I would
Yeah,
call it like MVP or like even alpha product
exactly.
testing.
So if you want to do any type of rapid iteration and not store any sensitive information, maybe you want to do like a redesign of your homepage, then sure, don't see the code, just open the chat tab and do this, change here, change that, blah, 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 blah. Once you reach a good point, you're like, okay, I like that. Now you know what you want. That was the entire goal of the vibe coding session, was to detect what you want to do or what the customers want. Or I don't know, you want to create a portfolio website. Okay, that's pretty low risk. You're not storing user data, you're not storing passwords, then fine. Like if you
Wait,
want
one
a
second.
quick result.
I have something I can wear when I become a vibe coder.
Ooh, I'm curious.
All right. So, I'm going to start my new YouTube channel. I'll be like vibe mentor,
The Elixir vibes mentor.
just
That's great.
there we go. Now I'm a vibe
Just
coder.
chilling.
I'm ready to go. I don't even have to like really see the screen. That's why I can wear sunglasses
Yeah,
because
you're
it's just gonna work.
yeah. I think whenever you want to enter the vibe coder mentality, you wear those glasses and then you hide the code. You just open the panel, the left panel, and you're like, do this, do this, do this, do that, do that. And then you're vibing. No
You know
need to
what's
check the
funny
code.
is like polarized sunglasses. So I have one of my monitors is turned, the long way,
Mhm.
and I can't see the monitor because because of the polarized
Ah,
lens.
I see.
It
Yeah.
knocks. I don't know how light
That's
frequency and
perfect then.
works, but
That's
yeah,
perfect
like
for
I just let it go and I don't have to read it. I can just be YouTubing
just let
over
it go.
here and vibe code on the left.
Now, please just don't put anything vibe coded in production. Okay? That's it. If you tell me that your
For
new
real.
says was vibe coded, I'm not touching, I'm not sending my password there. I'm
Dude, what's
not.
wild is like I don't remember the guy's name offhand, but he like basically said he vibe coded his whole like SaaS product and then got attacked and hacked and like DDoSed and all that
Mhm.
crap. So basically just blew up. But he first, before that all happened, he was like bragging about having like 100 paying users.
Mhm.
Like, guys, you have to take responsibility. Like, you have 100 paying users. Are you storing their data properly? Like, if you get hacked, is there sensitive information going out? Like,
Yeah.
you have
No,
to
that's
understand what code is being generated. Like that scares me. Like, I remember talking to someone that just like let them have full read write rights to their entire like computer, but they worked in like a VM. But like
mhm.
still, like you're allowing it to just manipulate your database, whatever it wants to do.
Yeah.
And I get you can like kind of use Git and protect yourself a little bit, but I don't know. You gotta like lock that down and only allow it to do so much.
Yeah. And I like to say that my approach for using AI is more of a like a sniper approach where I have a very safe and contained environment. And then I very carefully find out what I need to do. Once I have a very clear understanding of what I need to do, then I shoot. And then the shoot is usually very precise. I usually hit my target. There are some people that just open the chat tab, don't send any context, don't send any documentation, don't send anything. And they're like, implement this for me. And then it generates a bunch of gibberish. And then instead of deleting it or trying to understand the code, they're like, oh no, please fix this, fix this, fix that, fix that. And then it's exponential. You have a bunch of gibberish that is exponential, and then it starts hallucinating. It's horrible. That's like a machine gun approach where you just
I like
go in shooting.
Yeah, I like your sniper approach because you have to just focus on very small things. You have to like any big project, how you would break it down. That's how you have to approach using AI, right? You have to be like, all right, now let's do this specific module or this component, and you have to do one thing at a time and stitch it together. I was very curious when I started playing with Klein. I had this just a vanilla JavaScript and HTML and CSS, just bare bones, no frameworks, no dependencies. And it was just like a minor, like a Chrome extension that did some web scraping. And obviously, like I want to add some more complexity to it. So I wanted to see, like, I wrote like a markdown file of like directions, kind of like what we have to get through, like each point, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to see if Klein could work its way through and kind of use the markdown as like a living document. So it could like check things off as we went. So it could kind of keep track through the markdown. And then I was like, look, I want you to take this project and convert it to Svelte. It did not work. It kind of worked. Like if I didn't know what I was doing, I would think it would work because like it initialized Svelte, it moved some things, it built some components, but it wasn't like using the Svelte components, you know? It was still using my vanilla JavaScript stuff. So it was like this weird like intermix project where there's a ton of useless code and then a ton of old code, but it was like using bits and pieces from all over the project. So it just made a huge mess. And so now my approach is just going to be like a component at a time, you know, create the new project component at a time. Like I wanted to see the limitations. I was just kind of curious, but it like completely blew up. But I will say it compiled and ran the same exact way. So
which is impressive, right?
Yeah. So if I didn't know what I was doing, and what is cool is like the workflow stuff now, like the agentic workflows that these IDEs can do. It can like iterate, it can compile, it can see errors, and it'll try to fix itself. But it can also get in weird loops that just cost you a lot of money.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why on my Windsurf rules, I have explicitly a line that says, every time you generate a lot of code, run mix check. And then check is a custom script that I added on my mix file where I have like the basic checks, like check the formatting, check, do a compilation with warnings as errors. Also run the type check script that I have inside assets, which is my TypeScript script. So every time it generates a bunch of code, first of all, before running the mix check, it checks for lint errors. So if there are any unused aliases, unused imports, then it removes those. If there are unused variables, it removes those. And then after that, it runs the mix check. And I also have Credo in there to check for the code quality. So sometimes, I mean, I'm still learning Elixir. I check the code and I'm like, this looks good. But then Credo is like, oh no, this is too nested. Too many nested functions.
Those are the best warnings too, because sometimes you just like are in too much in your head, too much in the problem, and you write a really nasty function that shouldn't be one function, you know? And so Credo's nice for that.
It's a lifesaver.
It'll also yell at you if you don't alias things, and I love that.
And I use the strict option, but I don't know if this is specific to strict or not, but you need to order the aliases and imports alphabetically. So I'm like, wow, looks great. And then you're using the wrong alphabetical order. And I'm like, oh God, okay.
Feed my OCD. Come on, buddy. I'll do that.
I didn't have this OCD.
I'll do that in my mix. I'll do that in my mix file for dependencies. I'll make sure everything's alphabetical.
So now I have OCD thanks to Credo. Thanks a lot, Credo. But
It's good for
it
you.
looks nice. Like
It,
the code looks nice. I like to say that this is my sanity check script, where you generate a bunch of code and you're like, sanity check, is everything okay? Everything looks good. And then if it runs the mix check and it fails, then I don't need to say, please fix. It enters a loop, the
yeah.
agent mode, and then it fixes
Yeah.
automatically.
Yeah, I guess that's like the agent mode is the agentic workflow that I was describing,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, which it's pretty cool.
It's insane. Like previously, I had to copy and paste a bunch of errors and paste on the chat. Now it's on my Windsurf rules, so I don't even have to say run mix check. It generates the code, run mix check automatically, and then it's like, oh no, we messed up formatting. Let me run mix format for you. Oh no, there are unused alias. Let me remove the that for that module. Oh no, we're not using the alphabetical order. Let me change that. And you can see like literally like a senior developer working at 2x speed, and you're just watching everything going on. And as I said, I like watching. If I see that it's going on a weird tangent, I just stop immediately.
Hmm.
But with the sanity check at the end, the results are so much better. And it's just a custom script. You can check for
Hmm.
whatever you want. On my case,
Yeah.
it's TypeScript, Credo, formatting, but you can put whatever you want.
You know, so I'm giving Ash Framework another go because I struggled trying to like implement it into like my daily work. It was just slowing me down too much. But
Mhm.
now with like the release of the new Ash Framework book, which is awesome by the way, it's still in beta, but I still highly suggest it if you're using Ash. A lot of good stuff. But like Claude, for instance, you can have projects, right? You can upload
Yeah,
that. You can upload that as a reference, and you can be like, hey, I need help making this resource like available on the graph, and it will look through the book or the online documentation and give me pretty accurate help. Like it's pretty awesome.
yeah. And I didn't even got into my SaaS workflow, but I use a very similar workflow for it, which is Claude projects. Now, this is not a feature specific to just Claude. ChatGPT has it. If you pay for the premium version, you have access to something called projects, where instead of opening a new chat, every time the context gets too big, you open up a new chat, but you lose all the context. No, you can have a project where you can upload text, any type of file. I think even video or audio you can upload as well. In your case, you said you uploaded. Were you able to upload the entire book as a resource?
Well, so it was short enough, but you start to max out I forget what the limit is, but yeah, a lot of books you can't, right? Because they're just going to be too long. But you can now do like GitHub repo links and
Yeah,
documentation links, which is a huge time saver because now you can just link documentation and have at it, you know?
exactly. And imagine this: if you want to talk to a book, for example, well, create a project and Claude or ChatGPT, upload the book, and say, I don't know, summarize this for me. Or you want to ask a question about a section that you haven't read yet, then you can have your answer at your fingertips, like super easy. You can literally talk to the book. I think that's crazy. And for my
Hmm.
SaaS workflow, what I like to do is I like brainstorming. Every time I find something very cool, I'm like, okay, I want to save that. So I create a literally just a text file that says, for example, tech school guidelines, tech school monetization strategies. Literally, I paste the ideas that Claude gave me, upload it to the project, and then now from now on, Claude is aware of how I want to monetize my SaaS, what are the guidelines that I'm trying to follow, and that's my approach for getting
Hmm.
ideas. I use Claude, the desktop app, as a co-founder. And there's even project instructions where you can give custom instructions on how Claude should behave. So on your example of the book, you could say custom instructions. You are a teacher with a lot of experience in Elixir and Ash, and you want to explain things slowly. And then, I don't know, this topic, I think it's hard. You should explain it more. You give it literally custom instructions. On my case, let me grab my project instructions real quick. For version 2 of TechSchool, this is my project instructions. Function as a strategic co-founder slash product owner with expertise in UI design, marketing strategy, sales optimization, product planning, creating PRDs. Focus on brainstorming ideas, asking further questions to deeply understand my intentions, and planning the MVP slash next features. Do not generate code. The main focus is scoping out new features. So it enters a mode of I have a co-founder. I can ask questions and I'm like, I think I want to do this new feature. What do you think? And sometimes Claude is like, okay, this is cool, but I think this other feature is better for the MVP. And I'm like, wow,
That's
amazing.
cool. I like that.
That's
That's a really
really
good
cool
idea. Yeah.
because I like to think that I'm a good developer. Maybe I'm wrong, but I like to think that. But I know that I'm not a good product person. I'm
Hmm.
not very good at scoping new features, of coming up with MVP ideas. I am not good. So I use Claude for that. I created a project with zero ideas in the beginning. And then, first of all, I explained to him, hey, I have this project now called Tech School that does this, this, and that. I want to work on a V2. What do you suggest for a V2? And then,
Mm.
after talking to it, I sort of extracted the guidelines of, okay, I like this, I like that, I like this. I chose the features that I wanted to work on. And then at the end of the message, I was like, okay, now generate a guideline of what we talked about in this conversation. So it generated the guideline, I copied it, and then uploaded to the project as a text file. It was called Tech School V2 Guidelines. And then that's how I progressed with my says ideas. Literally, imagine it as imagine that you have a very experienced co-founder next to you that you can ask questions, you can scope new features. And then I was like, okay, this looks cool, but I want to monetize this. What ideas do you have? Where should I monetize? And then he's like, oh, you could monetize this aspect or maybe that other one. And I'm like, I like this one. Can you expand more? It's a brainstorming session. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, I liked this. Please summarize it. So it generates a summary. I copy that, upload to the project as tech school monetization strategy as a text file. And then I
Hmm.
move on. So literally coming up with the idea alongside Claude. And I sync the Claude with GitHub. And what I like to do is, okay, based on the files that I have now, based on the features that I have now, what should I build next? And then he's like, maybe you should focus on the course search. You haven't done search yet, so you should do it because it has access to the code. And or I could ask, okay, I have finished the search. What else? What should I do next? And then Claude gives me a direction.
How good is it with like seeing the full scope of a larger project though? Do you notice like does it struggle
That's a good
or
question.
like when it has a GitHub repo, is it pretty good?
So you can pick which files or folders from the repo that you want to sync. On my case, I synced the assets folder and the lib, which is where my front end and backend lives. Like, I don't care about the configuration. I don't care about migrations. Like, I think that with just these two folders, Claude has the full context of what I am building. So usually I say something like, check the assets folder to see which pages I have and give me UI suggestions for the course addition process. And then he can just see the course add page. Or I'm like, I don't like the profile page. Can you give me UI suggestions? And then it sees the profile page. So I don't sync everything. I don't think I
Mm.
would be able to because of the context limitation. But I literally just selected the lib folder where the backend lives and the assets. That's
Mm.
it.
But
And
I
that's
mean
enough.
that you're pretty much syncing your whole project.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
90% of the code is
yeah,
there.
okay. That's pretty good. And it reads through
And
it and understands context pretty well.
Yeah, and I let me check real quick. I'm using 50% of the knowledge capacity for the project. So I think if I wanted to, I could just sync the entire project. I decided to just pick those folders. But
Does it
for
only work
example,
for public repos?
no, the version 2 is private. I don't
Oh,
know if I'm
dope.
gonna open source it, but it's private. So it
Okay.
has access to it.
Mind
That's pretty
blown.
neat.
I thought when I first looked at it, so like I use Claude in the browser. Is it worth
Mhm.
having the desktop app?
To be honest, on the desktop app, you have access to MCPs, but I
Mm,
use the MCP inside Windsurf, not really inside
yeah.
Claude. So
Okay.
I'm like, I don't think it's really necessary. I think it's more practical in a sense, but not really necessary. I would say it's optional.
Okay. Maybe I'll give it a go.
And yeah, to your point about the context, just to finish that question, as I said, I liked having more of a sniper approach. So if I think that for Claude to understand what I'm working on, he needs to look at the courses pages. I'm going to explicitly write, please take a look at the courses pages. Those are important. So in the same way in the code generation, if I'm like, create a new module on Elixir and grab inspiration from this other module. For example, I had to come up with unique names for some entities on my database. And I had a very neat function on another schema file, on another chain set to generate unique names. So I literally said, create a function to generate unique names for those tools based on this other file. And some people don't do that. They just open the chat and they're like, generate unique names, dot, period. I don't like that. I like giving as much context as possible. If I think it's going to mess up something, I also give a web link. It's very precise. I open up a bunch of files. I say, take inspiration here. Look at this drop down component there. Also on the Claude desktop, please take a look at those pages. I think they are important. So very precise approach. I don't like just going machine gun mode and just do this and then expect it to understand the context. I try to
Hmm.
be explicit most of the time.
Yeah. Well, machine gun mode, I think, just gets you in trouble. That gets you a
Yeah,
refactored app with a lot of dead code and
you can
vulnerabilities.
go to hallucination mode very quickly if you go machine gun mode. That's a bit dangerous.
Oh, there's a good name. Chris goes, I need a new character for vibe coding. Maybe like I don't know, machine gun vibe coder or
Machine
something.
gun Jacob Elixir. Machine gun Jacob. I think that's a nice name. Vibe
Yeah,
machine
perfect.
gun mentor.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
machine gun viber.
that
we'll
that
we'll
one's good.
we'll get Claude to help us nail down the name.
Yeah, you can generate the name as
Might
well. No need to
might as
spend any
well.
brain on that.
Yeah, might as well brand as well. Vibe code, vibe brand, just go.
Yeah. In fact, I do have a project for video ideas or like brand ideas. It's also a project where I just upload
Yeah.
some examples and I'm uh, like I give samples of my YouTube and I'm like, okay, give me video ideas. And then I grab video ideas from there as well. So I mean, I'm using AI for the most amount of things possible, but that's also a test that I'm doing. I like to experiment on things. And if you want to learn at least one thing from this podcast is be open-minded. Like just try. Okay. Oh, but I like generating code by creating code by hand. But just try it. Just try it. Okay.
Yeah.
Be mindful, give the proper context, write a big text, but just try it. And also try vibe coding. Try not giving any context and see the results. It's a
Yeah,
nice test to do.
and then please stop doing it immediately and never use the word vibe coder again.
Test it and then stop it. Stop it.
Yeah. Stop it. It's not a badge of honor to call yourself a
It's
vibe
not.
coder.
Nope. not healthy to call yourself a vibe coder. Not recommended.
That's how you get your SaaS
Hacked.
project attacked and hacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if you've seen this. I feel like it's like new this week or in the last couple days. But one of the coolest AI projects I've seen yet. I think his name's like Roy Lee. He made basically. All right, I hate it, and I've been talking about this for years. Like Ben and I, with like Big App Energy, we have said how much we hate leak code for job
Oh,
interviews.
I think I know what this is. It's the
Yeah,
F lead code.
yes, yes. Like, oh my gosh, this guy is like my new favorite guy ever, best product ever. If you guys don't know it, it's like basically he made a transparent AI window that lets you like code live because you're like when you interview for these big fang companies, they'll just like you're like in their own console and they'll like give you a leak code question and you have to solve it on the spot. Well, this allows you to like take screenshots of the leak code. You can even take multiple screenshots if you have to scroll, all with like commands on the keyboard, so you're not even moving the cursor around, which is really cool. So they don't think you're like doing other things, and then it will solve the problem and like give you prompts that you can speak out loud about your like question, your solving problem techniques, and then
Mhm.
it gives you the code and you can just type it in and solve it, and they can't see it on screen sharing, which like such a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and from what I heard, I think he got expelled from like his
Dude,
college,
yeah,
from his job. Yeah, yeah.
Columbia expelled him or something like that. And like
We lost our
Amazon,
hero.
they got like he went through the interview process and like YouTubed it on like and he got hired or at least an offer from Amazon and some other big companies. And when he put it up on YouTube, they were so butthurt they reached out to his school and for whatever reason like he didn't do anything wrong. If anything, he just proved how dumb leak code interviews are. And
Yeah.
like, come on, guys. Like, hire that guy. That's the kind of programmer you want
Yeah.
on your team. You
That's
don't
the
want a
big brain
guy
that you want on your
you
team.
you want a guy that memorized how to solve a bunch of algorithm questions. Like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, that's the most annoying thing, at least in my opinion, about being a programmer is this type of interview. I just hate it, especially if you have this builder mentality where you want to build things and you're like, oh, how about inverting a binary tree? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, can I deploy that to the Apple Store, to a website? No, I can't. Then that's useless. That's
Well,
an imaginary problem.
and also if you start having like query speed problems, you're gonna solve that problem when you have to.
Yeah, and
You
you're gonna
know?
solve that problem with SQL, not
Right.
with the Dijkstra algorithm or the inversion of a
Right.
binary tree. That doesn't matter.
Right.
At least on my mind, I just hate it so much. It's the worst part. Whenever I see that there is a lead code part of the interview, I'm like, nah, not for me.
I'm not
I
even
like
a fan.
startups.
I'm not even a fan of any like whiteboarding or I'm okay with like high up, like how would you architect this solution? What would you do?
Yeah.
Like talk in the macro sense, because like you
Mhm.
still can use words. Like I would probably use like a gen server or the ETS table. And if you're dropping these words, I think it kind of proves that you know what you're doing, at least for the most part. But
Yeah.
yeah, like anytime you're like live coding or pair programming for an interview, I think it's dumb. I think take home projects are fine. Like you can see how people, you know, create a project, how they organize code, and how they problem solve, right? It doesn't really like as long as they get to the solution and it works,
Yeah.
that's important. But I think everything else is just dumb and it just adds like anxiety and stress to the interview process. It's weird.
Yeah, and your performance drops. Like it's inevitable. You're gonna code at your normal speed, and then you go to an interview where you're live coding, and then you are like 0.1x of your normal performance because you have anxiety, you have fear, uh, you're not feeling good with the person watching you code. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
So I completely
Yeah,
understand and
it's
agree.
weird. And like I recently just went through the interview process, so it like kind of all hit home again. Like back in like
Mhm.
December and November, I was interviewing a lot, and you can. I was like interviewing with some senior devs at companies, and I was teaching them stuff about Elixir. But like I didn't know that till we had like a more technical conversation after these stupid leak code exercises, after you like get through all the low levels of this interview, which honestly knocked me out of the race. They knocked me out of the race early on a lot of times just because I don't have the capacity to want to do it. Like, and it gives me like I'm a horrible test taker, but I can build a product. So like
Yeah.
it does weird things. But like yeah, I made it through. But then when you start talking to these high level guys who you're going to be working with, and you're like, wait, why do I know so much more than you? Like, I'm not going to learn anything at your company. And like, that's why I'm so grateful at the company I'm at now. I work with like people that I feel are all way smarter than me. So I'm learning from them daily, you know?
Yeah, I also like this philosophy. There are some people that says something like, "Oh, I want to always be the smartest person in the room to constantly push me to be smarter." And I'm like, "Bro, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. That
Yeah.
means that I'm on the right room. I have enough space to learn and grow. I always want to be the opposite,
Right.
the dumbest
Exactly.
person in the room."
Because at least you're learning then, right?
Yeah, then I can go sponge mode and then absorb as much knowledge as I can instead of having marginal gains over talking to some people. I like going to sponge mode and just absorbing as much as I can. That's my philosophy, at least.
Yeah, that's Chris was like, that's why they got him kicked out of school. Jeff Bezos will fund his seed round in under a month. That's probably true. They're like, we want this kid to focus on his
Hold
product.
up. I don't want you as an employee. I want to be your business partner. Okay.
Yeah,
So let's
exactly.
kick you out and then position you at the correct place.
But yeah, that's
That's
cool.
smart.
He also mentioned that it'll like scan your eyes and it will move the window where you're looking on the screen so it doesn't look like you're glancing somewhere else. That's pretty cool. Like it's just a cool product. Like I love seeing really
It's
cool
a
projects.
very high level of engineering. Like you
Yeah.
cannot be a stupid person and code this.
No.
That's hard. That was a
And
hard
I
project to code.
and I love that it just totally demolishes the purpose of leak code. Like all these
And
companies will probably stop doing leak code tests.
that would be a win. I'm up
But
for
not a
that.
win for his company, unfortunately, for his new product. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
And I think it's funny because we have companies using AI to remove people from the selection process. And then once we use AI to pass on those selection process, they're like, "Oh no,
Oh no, we don't
I can
like
use it on
that.
my end, but on your end, nah,
Nope.
just on our end."
Yeah. Yeah, coolest product ever though. Like kudos.
Yeah, and thankfully I didn't have to do a lead code interview as well on my current job. That's how you know, like, yeah, I think we have more of this personality to work at not necessarily startups, but more open-minded
Yeah.
companies where they are more worried about the product aspect of the product rather than
Yeah.
the ultra
Well, like
nerd that wants to hyper
yeah.
optimize.
Well, too, like so Collects, who I'm working for now, they didn't do any leak code stuff either. It was I had a couple conversations with like a lead engineer and then the team of engineers that I'd be working with so they could like hammer me with questions. And then I had like a take home project and then another call with the whole engineering backend team where they questioned my project. And so like I think through that process, you know if someone actually understands the code they wrote, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And on my
And it,
end, yeah, please
I
finish
was
your
going to
story.
say, and it just takes the weird stress and anxiety off the memorization of computer science.
Yeah, exactly. And you're talking about a project that you wrote, so you're comfortable. Like you didn't code
Hmm.
it in front of them. On my case, I was able to grab the code from tech school and I got asked a bunch of questions about, oh, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why? How do you think you would improve this performance, that
Mm-hmm.
performance? And I was like, oh, that's my home. I can talk about this all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it was great. I was able to fully elaborate on all my ideas because I coded that thing from scratch. So that was an amazing selection process, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
I think that's the only way to do it. And I think I walked through one of my they're like, if you have any projects you can share, can you walk through them? And like I pulled up my like web hosting project, and
Mhm.
like it's cool. Like maybe it's not the most like tech edutech savvy like LLM project, but I made like dynamic live views, dynamic routing, and like a lot of really cool stuff to support, hosting 100 websites. So it
Yeah,
was fun. So I got to show like a pet project of mine, and I knew the code base, so they know that I wrote it all. So yeah, it's
yeah,
it's it's better to talk through one of your own projects for sure.
yeah. You knew everything by heart because you coded it, so it's much more comfortable. You feel,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're able to perform normally when you're talking about a code that you wrote instead of having to perform in front of them and just generate the code on the spot. That is never
Exactly.
a good idea.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I love that like Amazon got, their panties in a bunch and actually wrote a letter to his school to get him
Yeah, that
expelled, which is
yeah,
messed
that was
up,
the
but
sad part there.
it went viral and now this kid is running a really successful startup.
Yeah, he has the mindset for it. Go build your
Yeah.
own thing, man. You don't need to work at a big tech
Yeah.
that demands all those unreasonable things like grinding lead code for years. No, you outsmarted them, so you are on a whole new level.
Yeah. I just love it. Like why didn't this tool exist? Like worth every penny, guys.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think this was
but
awesome, dude. I'm glad that you shared like all your windsurf and how you approach projects. I think it's important for people to talk about it. I don't
yeah,
think I think like at first people were scared to be like I use AI to try to code. Like you just have to use it properly. Like no one thinks you're writing all your code with AI because it's not feasible, but it has its strengths and you can use it to 10x your output.
yeah, exactly. And I am reviewing each line of code. I don't feel comfortable just blindly generating things and then pushing to production. No, like if I really trust the code, I am going to at least, like for example, if previously I would take 1 hour to finish this feature, now I finish the feature in 10 minutes, and then I spend the next 40 minutes testing.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me confidence. Then I do a bunch of manual testing. I go clicking on every single aspect of the new page to see if everything's working, and this gives me a lot of confidence. So I review the code. I do not vibe code. I manually test everything that I wrote.
Now, time out. Do you have test coverage on your code?
Like checking the percentage levels.
The unit tests,
Yeah, I
um,
do. I do write tests.
integration tests. Okay, good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's part of the sanity check that I mentioned. I mentioned the check command, but I also like generating the tests because, yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes if you don't have the time to manually check the function, you can write the tests and you can read the tests and see if it's properly testing your feature. So, yes, I do generate tests. Okay. So, just if
Good.
anyone's wondering, I do write tests all over the place because it gives me
Yeah.
confidence on the results.
Well, and you have to worry less about regret. Like, so I think you're more likely to have regression bugs using AI because like, especially if you're not PRing and reviewing every line of code, it might change something. And
Yeah. On the
that's what,
hallucinations, they break
right.
existing things.
Well, and you should just PR every line of code. I think that's the saving grace here of not fully depending on what was outputted.
Yeah. And yeah, as I mentioned, like this is an accelerator. You still need to review the code, check for, do your security audits. You need that expertise. You need to be some form of engineer, like either having the formal education or doing a boot camp and learning the engineering by yourself, but you need that technical mentality.
Hmm.
I don't think you can grab a random designer and say, well, just use Cursor, man, and generate the code. Like
No,
a
yeah,
designer.
you need to know how things are working under the hood, or I think you'll just get in a lot of trouble and create a product that gets hacked. Like
Exactly.
like
Well,
some of those X posts, I like they have to be satire, but I don't
I
think they
think they
are.
are. I
Maybe
think
they
they're
are.
most of them are fake. To be
I
honest, I
hope
think they're
so. I really hope
engagement
so.
baits.
Yeah, yeah. I really hope so, but like sometimes I'm like, maybe it's not, which would be really bad.
Yeah, I read it and I'm like, I don't know if it's true, but I could see this happening. So maybe this is a cautionary tale for you to
Yeah.
learn and not make this mistake. So yeah, review your code, write tests, do manual tests as well if you're working on a full stack feature to be safe. Okay,
Yeah.
and then use it as an accelerator. You're now everyone is now a 10x engineer.
And
Leverage
now
that.
we can all go home and be vibe coders.
Let's grab our vodka or drinks and then our sunglasses and let's just
I that's what I
vibe
need,
code
like
and chill.
a little drink with a umbrella coming out of it.
Yeah, you need a Brazilian caipirinha to drink and then just chill. Right now I just have coffee, but yeah,
Same.
no alcohol.
That's how I live.
Yep, that's the correct way, in my opinion. Just coffee and code.
Coffee and code.
But you have your vibe coder glasses on, so
So now I
time
just
to
hit
vibe code
enter.
now.
Yeah, now it's
Yeah,
time to vibe code.
you just type whatever comes into your mind and press enter. That's it. Enter, enter,
Exactly.
enter.
Like Chris was joking, vibe code a new Stripe competitor, you know? We
I mean,
accept
if you wanna
payments.
if you wanna vibe code the landing page, all good. I don't know, a blog, all good. But don't tell me that I just added my password or Stripe credentials on your vibe coded app.
Oh
Please.
gosh, dude, imagine how many people put API keys and things into prompts and stuff.
Yeah. Now
Like I mean,
that's
I guess
actually
it's fine to do, but make sure you change them after you're done.
yeah, that's actually that happened to me once. I was using Windsurf. I didn't realize, but I had my secrets file open. I didn't give it as context, but then Windsurf said, "Hey, I have access to your secrets file. You might want to rotate those keys." And I was like, "Oh,
Oh
thank you.
wow.
That's great."
That is
I
good.
didn't
That
realize that it had
yeah.
access to it.
Yeah.
So I
So
felt amazing after that.
think about your environment variables, guys.
Please.
But
Security
all right.
matters, okay?
This was a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone that joined us, and I'm sure Daniel will be back on because it's always a good time when he comes on. But yeah, have a good
Yeah.
weekend, and thank you so much,
Thanks.
Daniel.
Thanks for everything. Thanks for everyone that watched it. It's always an amazing experience to be part of this amazing podcast. Thank you so
And
much.
go vibe code.
Testing.